If I was to say to you that you are already that which you desire to be, you are already that which you desire to be, perhaps you might not believe me if you were to look around at this world and then ask the honest question, which there's nothing wrong for asking the question, where is it? Where is this relationship that I desire? If I already am that which I desire to be, if I already have what I desire, then where is the prosperity that I desire? Where is this relationship that I desire? And that's an honest question. Now, Neville Goddard, in his book Out of This World, says, the past and future are a present whole to the spiritual view. The past and future are a present whole to the spiritual view. To the individual view, the individual may be relating to appearances in a way that seems to suggest that they are not already that which they desire to be. And they do what is called in the Bible as judging by appearances. Now, the individual can release identification to this habit. Just as you can change any habit that you have, you can change this habit. And so when this habit is changed, they also do what is said in the Bible. Do not judge by appearances, but by righteous judgment. Righteous judgment. Righteous judgment is knowing that you are already that which you desire to be. You already have what you desire. As Neville Goddard had said one time, you are already that which you want to be. And your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it. So you can imagine it. Certainly you can. And I've been saying over the years that desire points to fulfillment. In other words, you desire to be fulfilled. You want to be fulfilled. Or another person may say, they're waiting to be fulfilled. And again, to the person who looks to this world and judges by appearances, and no shame, no condemnation, that might not make any sense, because they're saying, where is this fulfillment that I want? Where is this fulfillment that I need? I'm waiting for this fulfillment to appear in some shape or form. If it appears this way, then I am fulfilled. And if it appears in another way, then I am not fulfilled. And again, nothing wrong with them. No shame, no condemnation. They're earnestly seeking for fulfillment. And so when I say that you are already that which you desire to be, you already have what you desire, what I'm speaking about is that you exist as fulfillment. That still I am presence is the fulfillment you were seeking for your whole life. The individual was seeking for fulfillment, and they may have been seeking outwardly in appearances. They may have been suggesting that only if it appears this way, then I can be fulfilled. Or only if it appears that way, then I can be fulfilled. In other words, we could say that they were wanting, needing, or waiting for a condition to be met, or something to appear in a particular way. And only if that does, then they can be fulfilled, which is illusory. And by that it is meant, those are conditions placed upon consciousness. And those conditions are in mind. They don't actually exist. They are in mind. So that's what I meant by, you might not believe me. Believing happens in mind. So there's this habit that the individual might have. He says, the habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we otherwise could see. In other words, if the individual is judging by appearances and not by righteous judgment, they're saying, this, what I see here, is all that exists to me. Let's say they're in a room. They'll say, oh, just what's within this room is all I can see. Now, if I say, what's outside of your room? They'll say, well, there's a hallway outside of my room. There is a person sitting down on a couch, perhaps they're a family member, in their living room outside of this room. But if I said, what you desire, you already have. You already have what you desire. They might say, well, I don't see it. I know what exists is my family member sitting on the couch or this and that. I know that that exists. But this, what you're referring to, which is what I desire, does not exist. In other words, they're only through the evidence of the senses determining what exists and what does not exist. As he had said, the habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we otherwise could see. That particular belief distorts reality. You also mentioned that the past and future are a present whole to the spiritual view. So it's natural then for the individual to look to this world and say, where is it? Nothing wrong with that. No shame, no condemnation. Yet to the spiritual view, the past and future are a present whole. And thus the individual, abiding as the spiritual self, does not identify with this habit of seeing only that which the senses permit. Now, how does this relate to when I say you are already that which you desire to be? You already have what you desire. Well, I've been applying this information since 2004, since I discovered it through a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in there, he said that if you have a burning desire, that you already have it. You can imagine yourself to be that which you desire to be. Or another way of saying it is, desire and intention are one. Or desire, intention, fulfillment are one. Or God, the self, desire, intention, fulfillment are one. And why do I say that? Because what I have noticed is that some way, somehow, it happens. As I have accepted that I am already that which I desire to be. There is no wanting, needing, waiting. There's no judging by appearances, but by righteous judgment, which is knowing that I am already that which I desire to be, and thus I have what I desire. What naturally happens is what I say, what I don't say, what I do, what I don't do, what I think, what I don't think, what I feel, what I don't feel, happens naturally in flow. Happens naturally in flow. People appear to be in harmony. Environments appear to be in harmony. Everything appears to be in harmony with that which I imagined. Undeniably, it appears to be in harmony. Because the desire points to that fulfillment, that eternal fulfillment. That eternal fulfillment, what all desire points to, is that still I am presence. And from that spiritual view, of course, everything appears to be in harmony for the individual. Of course, you can see the patterns of everything appearing to be in harmony. Thus, there is no wanting, needing, waiting from the spiritual view. It is only the individual that can judge by appearances. And no shame, no condemnation. The individual can stop judging by appearances. But a person might say, how do I stop judging by appearances? It's one thing to conceptually think about what Neville had said here. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it. That might not make any sense. It sounds like an interesting concept. How do I actually experience this? Refusal. It sounds like I have to do this force-based thing. Try to ignore this or that. That does not feel right. What you suggest is that you are already that which you desire to be. Everything appears to be in harmony. What you think, what you don't think, what you say, what you don't say, what you feel, what you don't feel happens naturally in flow. This refusal to believe this is the only reason why I don't see it is generating confusion in mind, frustration in the body, etc. And I say, no shame, no condemnation. That which all the spiritual texts, that which Neville Goddard and all these authors that we discuss point to, is the fact that you are fulfilled. That existence is enough. Being is enough. Presence is enough. That still I am presence is everything that you desire to be. And as you abide as that fulfillment, in other words, desire, intention, fulfillment, God, the self are one. That's the spiritual view. No separation. As you abide as that still I am presence, there's no such thing as refusal to believe it. You are the eternal fulfillment. You're witnessing all these things appearing to transform. You could say it that way. Thoughts transform. Behaviors transform. Environments transform. People appear to transform. You are witnessing all these things without judging by appearances. And righteously so, as stated in the Bible, do not judge by appearances, but by righteous judgment. Upright, absolutely witnessing all these things to be in perfect harmony. That's the spiritual view. From the spiritual view, they no longer imagine limitations. As I have had this conversation with many individuals, what they then say to me is, oh, there can be a possibility. There can be a way that what I desire to happen can happen. There can be a way. And although I don't know the way, physically here I don't see the way, I know certainly that there is a way. And I say, of course you know certainly from the sure foundation of fulfillment, from the sure foundation of that still I am presence, which is the eternal and everlasting fulfillment, the source of fulfillment, the source of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. From the sure foundation, you know enough to say that some way, somehow it plays out. And you also know that there's no such thing as wanting, needing, waiting, being as you are, perfectly fulfilled, completely fulfilled. And I say, what if I say to you that You are already that which you desire to be. You already have what you desire. They say, I know what you mean. I know exactly what it is that you mean. Because I was judging by appearances. And as you said, no shame, no condemnation. I did not shame and condemn myself. I stopped that. I said, how did you stop that? And they say, simply being as I am. You're witnessing from the spiritual view all these things appearing to be in harmony, aren't you? You know, like what could sound like a very abstract concept is not an abstract concept. It is actually the sure foundation of existence. And why do you call it a sure foundation? Because that is the eternal fulfillment. That is the eternal peace. That is the eternal love, the eternal bliss, the eternal happiness that I was looking for. Why do you say that? Because that is what I feel. I said, are you trying to feel that in the body? Are you forcing yourself to feel love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in your body? And they say, it just spontaneously happens. And so I say, what about this that you desire to experience, that which you imagine yourself to be? They say, I am that which I imagine myself to be. They may say something like, I found it in the form of desire, or something like that, like how Neville had said, what you now desire, you already have. You seek it only because you have already found it. You found it in the form of desire. So desire points to fulfillment. As mentioned, that I came across this information in 2004. That's what he said. So I committed to the definite chief aim, which is that which I desired to experience at that time, which was to no longer be in $50,000 debt. Some way, somehow, it happened. All these opportunities that were always there started to appear. Now I can look back. I can connect the dots looking backwards and say, well, this had shifted in my career. My way of thinking was changing. How I was emotionally relating to the appearances were changing. People started to show up. Environments appeared to transform. All these things started to happen. It's like by accepting that I am already that which I desire to be, which is in imagination that which I am. Yet, it is different than what I was experiencing through the five senses. In other words, seeing only that which my senses permitted through the five senses. Habitually, you can say it that way. Having known that I am that which I imagine myself to be, and thus knowing that I am transcendent to these appearances, some way, somehow, these opportunities, and also, as I mentioned, what I was thinking, not thinking, doing, not doing, emotionally relating, not emotionally relating, all these things that the individual tries to change just happen naturally in flow. Now, over the years, as I started to really understand what was going on, it started to become more effortless, easier. And for example, yesterday we had a meetup for Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service. If you're interested in that, I'll link in the description to it. Meeting up in San Francisco. Everything worked out harmoniously. Everything down to the last detail. All the experiences, the magic, the synchronicity, where we went, the venues, everything happened effortlessly. I mentioned, I said, you know, what I have seen in these kinds of events, and I was involved with consulting for many years. I've consulted in organizations where they run these kinds of events, is a lot of planning goes into it. There are a lot of people involved. And what did we see here at this event? we see everyone appearing to be in harmony, everyone appearing to play the perfect role without interference. It's not like I was trying to control things and say, we're going to do this, and then we need to do that, and then this needs to happen, and that needs to happen. I just did not identify with wanting, needing, waiting, or controlling how things happen. I just imagine that we have a wonderful time and everything plays out in a way that is perfectly in harmony. And I might not even imagine that. That is the way that it is. I am that pure awareness. That is fulfillment. You are that pure awareness. That is fulfillment. That is what all this information points to. And over the years, having released this need to control, releasing the wanting, needing, waiting, it appears perfectly in harmony. And all these things, like for example, I talk about in consulting, when I consult with entrepreneurs, optimization, automation, delegation, elimination, happen naturally in flow. They happen naturally in flow. I can see what's going on. From the spiritual view, I can see the patterns. And one of the patterns is people, their resources, including a client, she bought a wonderful new house. We went over there, we hung out in the backyard. It was all perfectly orchestrated without me trying to orchestrate it. I said, you witnessed all of this now. And so everyone was saying that, yeah, this is, we hear you talk about it on the channel. You share your experiences. It's another experience to physically actually experience it playing out. There is no need to control, no need to force, no wanting, needing, waiting for anything, just everything happening spontaneously. What we said, what we did not say, what we were thinking, what we were not thinking, how we were emotionally relating, and all the environments, all the experiences, everything flowed naturally. And I said, all I do is remain in flow. And flow is the natural result of being as I am. And being as I am is the natural result of knowing who I am. And that still I am presence is fulfillment. It is what I was desiring for my whole life. It was what I was seeking for my whole life. It is the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, the fulfillment that I was seeking for my whole life. I found it in the form of desire. As Neville Goddard had said, what you now desire, you already have. You seek it only because you have already found it. You found it in the form of desire. Desire points to fulfillment. Anytime a desire arises, I am. Anytime there's a want, a need, waiting, or desiring for something to happen, I know it points to fulfillment. And then everything happens spontaneously in flow. Happens naturally. It's not like I try to control what I think or not think, what I do, what I not do. That's unnecessary. Everything happens. God does everything in flow. So we can say fulfillment is appearing more so. Another way of saying it is, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We're witnessing heaven appearing on earth more so. And as I said, how interesting. I've been involved with organizations where they would have multiple people and all this planning involved, and nothing wrong with that. There's steps in the right direction. In other words, I don't need to do this or that. Everything happens. What do you do? I do nothing. And by that is meant very specifically. It's not that the physical body is not moving. We were going to different venues. We were having conversations. We were doing different things like going to go get food, etc. Yet all those things happen naturally without force, without wanting, without needing, without waiting, without trying, as we know that we are already that which we desire to be. We found it in the form of desire, so we can abide as that fulfillment and take thus the spiritual view of life, which then, as you had mentioned, the habit of seeing only that which our senses permit, which renders us totally blind to what we otherwise could see, that habit dissolves. It's unnecessary because that is not how it is. How many times have you experienced this yourself? You found what you desired in the form of desire. Thus, that is the intention. And having set that intention, we can say it that way, which can sound like a force-based thing to do. Now I gotta set an intention. It just happens naturally. As you know, that desire points to fulfillment, but we can say it that way. You set the intention, which is a conscious thing to do. Yet after a period, that becomes automatic as well. But yeah, in the earlier stages, I created a definite chief aim card, as Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, to set the intention. Now, as you set the intention, what you see is opportunities start to show up. Things appear to transform. And even if, as mentioned, going back to the example that I gave you, sitting in the room here, the individual, judging by appearances, might not know how this works, is only looking through what they have seen through the five senses and saying, well, how could it work out? Where is it? I need to see evidence. I'm waiting for evidence. Well, the evidence spontaneously appears, but I don't wait for it. I don't need it. I'm not wanting it. That still I am presence is the fulfillment, the absolute fulfillment. And then there is no wanting, needing, waiting. So the habit gets dissolved, or the mind gets purified from that habit, which is generating a lot of suffering. Now all of a sudden an opportunity shows up, a way is revealed, or the individual may now receive an idea in mind, or intuitively, they may do something that they have never done before. And all of a sudden they're in a different environment. They meet the people that they desire to meet. They might not have never seen these kinds of people that they desire to meet exist physically. But they know in their heart that these kinds of individuals exist. They found it in the form of desire, which was another thing that was mentioned at the event. Was many that I spoke with who attended the event did not know at a particular point that it was possible to meet people that they can be themselves around. They could talk about what they desire to talk about. They can have conversations with individuals, and there will be no shaming and condemning, just deep understanding, mutual harmony. They didn't know it was possible. And then at a particular point, the desire emerged. They didn't know how it was going to happen. And how interesting that they met at the event. This has been my experience over the years as well. In the earlier stages, if someone were to say to me, as I had mentioned in the start of the video, someone said, you are already that which you desire to be, it might not make any sense. So as mind is purified from this habit of only looking at the senses and judging by appearances, it's gotten to the point where I can honestly say I do nothing and all these things happen. And again, body still flows, thoughts still flow, emotions still flow. I just don't resist that it can be in an easier, faster, more joyous, blissful way. Thus, it appears to play out as even more harmonious than ever before and well orchestrated, well coordinated. That's how I know, as I mentioned many times, and I refer to this in the Bible. It says, I can of myself do nothing, the Father would then do it the work. That is what it's meant. I can of myself do nothing, the Father would then do it the work. God does everything. It really is true that only God alone exists. And that might not also make any sense. Yet what I found is what I'm glad I did is over the years, I just committed to what I desired to experience, whatever it may be. I knew it was part of the plan, the grand scheme of things. And along the way, I saw evidence of this playing out, what we're discussing here, what Neville talks about. Some way, somehow, it happens. I don't know how. I don't worry about it. And then you get to a point where you literally don't worry about it. We could call that confidence. Or, as we discussed in Thursday's video, if you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it. The fragrance of that is what we can call charisma or personal magnetism. And we've been around individuals like this. You might say, hey, I don't know how this is going to happen. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. And they say it's okay. It's okay for you to feel what you feel. It does not mean that you do not have what you desire. It does not mean that what you desire will not happen. It's an opportunity to accept yourself the way you are. You are that still I am, presence, perfection. They may say that, they may not say that. As mentioned, I've met individuals that said the same thing over the years, but they just said it in different ways. And then you feel better. And if I say, how do you describe that individual? You'll say, oh, they were speaking very confidently without trying to convince me. They were magnetic. They were charismatic. Or you may have different ways of describing it. They abide as that still I am presence, and the natural fragrance of it is what they say, what they don't say, do, what they don't do. The appearances of charisma, the appearances of personal magnetism, the appearance of confidence. As a matter of fact, I'd like to make some more videos upcoming on confidence. Confidence naturally arises from the sure foundation of knowing who you are. It appears in flow. Body appears to flow. What they say, what they don't say happens naturally in flow. Not trying, not wanting, needing, waiting for anything to happen. This is also what I mean by reality is perfect as it is now. That still I am presence, that pure awareness is the sure foundation, reality itself. And all desire does is point to the fact that you are that. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I know that I am that which I desire to be, that still I am presence is the complete fulfillment that I was seeking for my whole life. And I found it as existence, presence, being, unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. I exist as fulfillment thus, witnessing all these things appearing to be in harmony. What I say, what I do, what people say, what people do, environments, all appear to be in harmony. All appear to be in harmony from the sure foundation. Everything flows naturally, as it was in the beginning, now, and ever shall be, as fundamental reality is perfect as it is now. I am that pure awareness, witnessing pure consciousness. Thus I am that existence, consciousness, bliss, that love, that happiness, that peace, that joy, the everlasting love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.